I'm ahead of the curve, also known as James Bergman, and in this book review today I will be discussing Patrick Süskind's Perfume, the story of a murderer, and this was first published in 1985. You may have caught a glimpse of it in the intro, but oh wow, just look at this front cover. You know, I'm going to show this regardless of this video probably being monetized or demonetized, for me doing so, but I mean, I can't stress how cool this cover is for the book. To briefly go over the premise of the book for those who are unaware, Jean-Baptiste Grenouille is abandoned on the filthy streets of 18th century Paris as a baby, but grows up to discover he has an extraordinary gift, a sense of smell more powerful than any other human's. Gradually, he learns how to exploit this gift in the art of creating the most sublime perfumes in France. Yet there is one odour he cannot capture, the scent of an innocent young virgin. In order to perfect his experiments, he must have his final ingredient at any cost. This is a bewitching, darkly humorous fable of desire, obsession, and death. Yeah, so I think that's a pretty apt description of what this book is about. It's a very dark, personal, yet omniscient sort of writing style. And there is a lot of themes about religion and filth and sort of a lack of empathy as you go through the piece. And I think that the first half is absolutely astounding. Although in the last 3/4 of the book, I was like, I'm not sure where this is going. I thought this was going to go in a different way. But how it ended, wow. I don't know if I'll go into spoilers. I might do towards the end of this video, but for now, I'll just say 3/4 in, I was like, I don't know where this is going. I was kind of expecting something different. I was expecting, and it kind of took a halt. And you know what I mean. It took a halt between anything sort of happening, or anything as dramatic happening as what happens in towards the beginning of the piece. And okay, look, I'll just go into spoilers. Okay, so just read this book. I don't care. I'm going straight into these spoilers. Yeah, he murders a virgin because he finds the scent, and it leads him to her. The descriptions in this book are astonishing. It's some of the best I've ever read. And even if they are extremely dark, existential, they are so masterful in their writing that even though the descriptions are dark, you can justify it and kind of be in astonishment of how good they are. And Grenouille is this sort of character, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name properly there, but he is this kind of character who is very unloved. He's had a very bad start in life. He was literally birthed under a fish sort of table to cut them up. I don't know what that would be called. I can't remember the name, but I'm sure I'll be forgiven. Wow. But this guy grows up and he finds that he doesn't have a scent. He can smell other people's scent, and this sense of smell is amazing. Better than anyone can smell it. You know, it's the level of what a dog might be able to smell or something like that, I imagine. But he sort of grows up, and then obviously he becomes obsessed with his sense of smell, and he gets driven towards the virgin, as I was discussing earlier, and he commits the crime. He kills the girl. And, you know, I just want to go straight to the metaphors, I guess, because I haven't really got a script at all for this, or many notes, or any notes at all. I wanted to sort of talk about the metaphors and kind of get straight to the point. So as much as I didn't really like how much it slowed down, I thought it was justified by the ending, because the ending solidified the metaphor of this book. And when he came down from the mountain as well, I was thinking, this is a bit like Thus Spoke Zarathustra. Like, this guy, for 7 years, he was in a cave. He was sort of taken in as this prophet in some sense. I don't know, like, that's how it felt in the writing style. And not that he was prophesizing anything, but his very being was in awe. It was some kind of manifested awe that he was being absorbed from. And everybody around him was sort of embracing him, and then he became a member of society, and he was wearing, clothes that were proper in comparison to his previous attire, and he was sort of taken in by this society that didn't know what he was. And what I found interesting throughout this piece is that I found that the author was perhaps trying to highlight the difference between aesthetic and reality, or fantasy and reality. And that there are a few reasons for this. When he was wearing these sort of posher clothes or better attire, people were accepting him and not believing that he would have been a hermit. And he even looked at himself in the mirror and he was seeing somebody else in some sense, but it was him. And there was some confusion there. And then when he was being taken to the gallows and he jumps out, I found it interesting how everyone sort of bowed down to him as if he was the new coming Christ, or Zarathustra, Nietzschean terms. And all he had to do was, flock his aesthetic, i.e. his own perfume, and that led to everybody being in awe, being starstruck by this, and being starstruck by his aesthetic, his image, I guess you could say. Even though the evidence was overwhelming, people did not want to believe that he was guilty for this crime. And you know why? Well, that was because he aesthetically maintained the image that he would have not been that sort of person. And we see this all the time in crime. Many psychopaths, for example, they can be not crazy at all, or psychopaths tend to not be crazy. That's kind of a myth anyway. Although not all psychopaths are extremely intelligent, I'll point that out. It was a love of image instead of intrinsic reality. And I just found it astounding how truthful that was to society as a whole. You would look at somebody and you would maybe say that guy looks as if he is something. You can put two and two together if you see him and the crime that they committed, and you could be like, oh yeah, that guy looks like he would have done that crime, right? We all know that feeling. But what I found from this book is that they looked at him and they were like, oh, well, because he looks non-disheveled and because he is wearing a frock coat, he looks smart, he looks sort of pampered up, he couldn't have committed that crime. But to somebody who was not in that position, they would point towards him and say, that person committed that crime instead of the one who actually did. And this was down to pure aesthetics. So this book is very much aesthetics. And also, I want to point out that now that my sort of brain is, sending neurosignals to one another, the owner of the perfume store or shop, if I was to be honest to my own country, he was all about aesthetics, because he was using an already established perfume to trick people into thinking that it was more original than it actually was. And so this is just another theme. It's aesthetics. It's how aesthetics are replaced by truth, I suppose you could say. I would even argue now, it's debatable whether this was detectable in the book as such, but independent from that, I would say that people say that they want truth, but really they just want a truth that is aesthetically pleasing. And there's a choice that we all have to make. Do we want to aestheticize truth, or do we not? There's no morality, there's only morale in some sense. That is what I've found anyway in sort of studying human psychology, in a sense, is that people want the truth when it's dressed up, not when it's naked. And speaking of nakedness, people were gasping on the street when he unleashed his perfume at the end of the book. And then they all forgot about it the day after, and it was because they were in such a state of bliss that it overtook their reason. And I think that that's also a testament to what aesthetics does. It overrides reason. That is what dressing does. Whether you want to do it for food, it can nullify the truth of the dish or of the subject, I suppose. What I was realizing is that this book is very much based in how people prefer appearance rather than reality. Books have descriptions, right? And what's so cool about this book is that it has descriptions, but it isn't visual. It's smell, right? And so I could even go further with this and say what we smell is not always what it seems. For example, we as human beings, we mutilate our natural incentive and instinctive to find other mates by their smell, and other animals do this as well. And obviously, if we didn't wear this sort of deodorant or perfume, we would smell much more natural, but obviously not as good. But actually, we evolved to like someone's scent, and that would be connected to their genetic makeup, and so on and so on. And again, adding perfume on us, adding deodorant, adding all these aesthetic things, it deprives us from the actual truth. Because, for example, somebody could wear bloody deodorant or perfume. That might say that they are somebody that you would want to mate with, let's say, or, you know, somebody pleasant. Because if somebody smells good, you would assume that they are good, right? And that's a really key equation here. But the whole point that I'm trying to make is that just because somebody might smell good, it doesn't mean that they are good, right? So this is something that is really big for me in this piece. It's linking all of these little signs together, all these metaphors of aesthetics versus truth. And it comes about in so many different ways. I haven't really heard someone else say this as well, and this was just something really big for me as I was reading. And even now, I just haven't heard of another booktuber bring up this point of aesthetics versus reality. So apart from this highlight that I've made in aesthetics, the religious themes are very prevalent. The prophet coming down from the mountain, being embraced, and then the people rejecting him. I also want to make a point about the cannibalism that is at the end of the book. So if we're going to think metaphorically about cannibalism, the very act of cannibalism, by eating somebody else, you either embrace their being as much as you can. So there's a few ways, right? So by consuming it, you're sort of respecting that being, and you're making the most of that flesh or that energy, that sense of life, right? The tribes of New Guinea, for example, they would eat their dead for their intellectual prowess, right? So they would eat their elders, brains of their elders, for example, to gain their knowledge. And that has happened many times. I mean, cannibalism was rife amongst our human ancestors. The problem with eating other people, though, or specifically their brains, is kuru, and it wiped out the people of Papua New Guinea. This has happened a few times as well in different locations, but as far as I'm concerned, the human meat itself is okay to eat, but although it's low in calories, so you probably want to eat more of it if you can. By eating somebody else, on the other hand, instead of admiring them and engulfing their being, their energy, the other side to cannibalism is actually to do with disgust. By eating somebody else, in the other sense, is to, firstly, yes, engulf their being, but the other end of that, and quite literally the other end, is to transfer them into quite literal shit. And that is what Hannibal, for example, did in the NBC show Hannibal. He did not admire the people that he killed. He found them to be rude and disgusting. And by doing so, he would dress them up with the seasoning, he'd make lovely meals out of them. He would essentially insult them and salvage what little honor they had by dressing up their meat and eating it. So there are many different philosophical sides to cannibalism. Brunel, he engulfed other people's being, but not through eating them, but by accumulating their scent. And by accumulating their scent, he would disembody them. So not physically, but he would metaphorically disembody them by capturing the essence of their scent, but nothing else. So he would turn them into a metaphor. And this is exactly what happens to him as a main character at the end, I feel. And I haven't heard this exact idea being shared before. So I'd be interested to learn what you guys think. And maybe I'm just I don't know, just wrong. Although, I don't know, I mean, it seems likely to me that this is reasonable, but, or maybe I'm just, disturbed and I'm just doing a tangent about cannibalism, which I tend to do sometimes. So yeah, the aesthetic point and also the cannibalism and engulfing somebody else's being, I think that these are major themes, and they are the themes that really stood out to me, or struck me, I guess, for a better word. All in all, I think I could say quite a lot more about the book, but I don't know if I understood all of it. And I mean that from, again, going from a metaphorical perspective, I don't actually think I understood it all. I feel like this is a book that I will definitely reread, and it is very rereadable. Not only the descriptions, as I said, are magnificent, but the story itself is just very bizarre at points, and it would be really interesting to return with some foreknowledge and to also view it with fresh eyes, you know, waiting a while until I read it again when I'm a bit older or whatever, like seeing how it hits me in a different way, because I have seen other ideas that people have had, and it didn't sort of strike me in that particular way. So yeah, this is definitely a very rereadable book. Yeah, thank you for watching, and let me know what you think of this book in the comment section below. Leave a like if you enjoyed. If you're new, subscribe. I review books, have conversations, talk about philosophy, religion, veganism sometimes. I have a podcast with the other bastards, Cody Sexton and McKay. Check that out in the description or my channel. Yeah, so very haunting book and very unique book. So I think I'll leave it there and try and reconcile it even more. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but I guess I'll have to suspend that judgment. All right, thank you for watching, guys, and I'll see you hopefully in the next video.